All right. Congratulations for investing in the future of your family today by joining AI Parenting Live. Now, we're a judgment free community moving from screen time to quality time. And our motto is don't sedate, relate to create. And today we're going to focus on the create theme by talking about not only AI proof skills, but also skills that are mediated by AI. Now, the world is that we live in is it's changing. It's changing so quickly. And that's exactly why we are here live every week to answer your most urgent questions. So when you leave a comment, you're helping other parents know that they're not alone and that we're all in this together. So, can we agree that we are here for each other? Yes? Comment, like write a comment that says yes. Just like make sure that I want to be able to hear you. Yes, in the comments. Just want to make sure it sends to everybody. See, some messages are sending out already. Perfect. Now, if you don't know me, I'm your host, Dr. Ed, and I've done all sorts of jobs in my career. I remember my first job was building these desktop computer towers as an intern. I've also worked retail, making $5.45 Canadian an hour at the electronics department of my local supermarket. I've also done labor jobs, like managing a painting franchise when I was in university. Now, ever since I had kids, I've been super curious about the future of work. What is my kids' career going to look like? And what can I do to make sure that they're ready for the future? So, when I first started researching this topic, the World Economic Forum described this massive shift called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. This massive shift is like a world of work that they predicted would happen in, say, 2 to maybe 5 years. As you know, lockdown restrictions have accelerated this timeline from years to mere months. And as a result, we've seen millions of jobs lost in retail, hotels, and restaurants. And at the same time, we've seen a surge in growth for online retailers, online delivery, and freelancing. So the digital economy is transforming the world of work, said the World Employment and Social Outlook February 2021 report from the International Labor Organization. They said it is transforming, not that it will transform. So, what this means is the fourth industrial revolution has moved from a prediction to a reality. Some of you have already seen this. We've seen since 2000, there has been an exponential growth in the number of online work platforms between 2010 and 2020. We've seen a 500% increase in the number of online work platforms that fall into two main categories. So one is web-based platforms where the work is performed online, and then the other is location-based platforms where the product or service is delivered to a location. Now, today, like I mentioned, we are going to explore first the $1.2 trillion freelance economy. Next, we'll explore the future of degrees and what it means for education. And then the third that we'll explore is what I'm calling AI proof skills. But before we move on, I just want to make sure that everyone is seeing this live now. Okay. it should
The
be
future
should be visible. I just want to
of
make sure that I can see the
degrees
comments
and what it means for
So I'm
education.
gonna write.
And then the third that we'll explore
See if I can see
is
it.
what I'm
Aha.
calling
So the
AI
Facebook
proof
comments are not working
skills.
today. Okay, got it.
But before
Oh,
we
no, they are
move on,
working.
I just want to
Okay,
make sure
fantastic.
that everyone is seeing this live now.
First,
Okay.
it should
The
be,
future
should be visible. I just want
of
to make sure that I can see the
degrees
comments.
and what it means for
So I'm
education.
gonna write.
And then the third that we'll explore
see if I can see
is
it. The
what I'm
first one
calling
that we're gonna
AI
explore
is
comments are not
skills.
freelance.
Okay,
got it.
but before
Oh,
we
no, they are
move on,
working.
I just
The
want to make
World
sure that
Economic
everyone is
Forum
seeing
says that the
this.
first industrial revolution
live
used
now. Okay.
steam power.
Let the future
be visible. I just want
of
to make sure that I can see
degrees
the comments. The
and what it means for
second
education.
industrial revolution.
And then the
used
third that we'll
electricity
explore
and
is
railroads.
what I'm
The first
calling
one that we're gonna
AI
explore
is
comments are not
skills.
freelance.
Okay,
Okay,
but before we
they are
move on,
working.
I just want to
The
make
World
sure that
Economic
everyone is
Technology
seeing
so that
this.
first industrial revolution
automate
used
live now. Okay.
steam power.
Let the future
be visible. I just want to
of
make sure that I can
degrees
see the comments. The
and what it
second
means for education.
industrial revolution.
And then the third that we'll explore is what I'm calling AI is skills.
Freelance.
Okay, but before we move on, I just want to make sure that everyone is seeing this.
Industrial revolution.
Okay.
Steam power.
Let the future
be visible.
of degrees and what it means for education.
Revolution.
And then the third that we'll explore is what I'm calling AI is skills. Okay, but before we move on, I just want to make sure that everyone is seeing this.
Industrial revolution.
Okay.
Steam power.
Let the future of degrees and what it means for education.
Revolution.
And then the third that we'll explore is what I'm calling AI is skills. Okay, but before we move on, I just want to make sure that everyone is seeing this.
Industrial revolution. That one. Sorry, you get a little bit of an echo. What percentage are freelancing using these online platforms? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? What would your guess be? Well, in 2020, more than a third, or 36%, that is 59 million Americans in the US alone, freelanced using online platforms, according to Upwork's Freelance Forward survey of 6,000 US workers. A third of them. These workers contributed $1.2 trillion to the US economy. And that's in 2020 alone. This is a 22% increase just from a year before, in 2019. And you might be wondering, well, what are the age demographics of this? Well, turns out that the younger you are, of course, the more likely you will be freelancing. So their age category is a little bit different than mine, but they said 30% of Gen Xers that were from 39 to 54 years of age were freelancing. So 30% in that category, while 44% of millennials aged 23 to 38 were freelancing. Now that number jumps to half of them for Gen Z aged 18 to 22. So you can see, like, as you go younger in terms of age, the chances that they're going to be freelancing is much, much higher. So digital labor platforms are very different from a traditional business in that they have few employees, but they manage the works of large numbers of people. The term that's used in the research is they mitigate the work. So that they don't really manage, because they don't really do anything for you. They just manage it. So they say mitigate. So an example platform would be people per hour. So the people per hour platform has 50 employees, but it manages the work of over 2.4 million people. And that's nothing compared to HackerRank, which has 200 employees, and it manages the work of 11 million people. So that's huge. What does it look like to work for a company, not of hundreds of people, thousands of people, not even hundreds of thousands, but millions of people? So let me ask you this. Do hourly wages increase or do they decrease when workers turn to online platforms for their income? Just write a comment below. Do they increase or do they decrease? Yes. They decrease. That's correct. Digital workers tend to work more hours and they get paid significantly less than their employed peers. Worldwide, the average working week for an app-based taxi driver was 65 hours a week. So quite a bit more. And we're seeing, I'm a little bit hesitant about the hourly wages because we're seeing conflicting reports. And it just depends on who's doing the reporting. So Upwork is reporting that 75% of the workers earned the same or more pay than their traditional employers in a survey of 6,000 workers from the US. Now, I'm wondering if the earnings numbers are a fair comparison because there's fees charged by these online platforms. And these fees range from 3.5 to 20%, like of their total earnings that is given to the web-based platform. And if it's between 5% and 25% if you're a location-based platform. So let's say you're driving for Uber, like you may be earning a certain amount. Maybe that was more than you got paid before, but you're giving 25% of that to Uber. So this is one of the reasons why so many restaurants these days are just struggling to compete against their lower cost ghost kitchens. These are kitchens that pretty much all they do is they make the food and then it's only for delivery. They have no internal space, so they have less overhead cost. They're optimized for just serving food directly for delivery. There's also a lot of unpaid negotiation that's needed if you work in the gig economy. The International Labor Organization found that a third of the hours worked on web-based platforms where you're delivering the product on the web, it's just unpaid. A third of your hours is unpaid. So, yet if you look at the numbers worldwide, this is where the numbers are significantly lower. The average hourly earnings was $3.40 US an hour. So that's overall $3.40 US an hour. Half of those workers made less than $2.40 an hour from a survey of 12,000 global digital workers. So half made less than $2.40 an hour. Now, of course, workers in developed countries, they made more than workers in undeveloped countries. So the workers in developed countries, their salary ranged from $4 US to $12 US an hour, while the hourly wage for those in developing countries ranged from $2 US to $5.50 US per hour in developing countries. And the key point here is that it takes the exact same amount of effort for an employer to hire a worker from a developing country as from a developed country. right? So it's the same amount of effort now to go and hire somebody from a developing country as it is to hire that same person from a developed country. So if the ratings for an online worker are good, why pay more? Why would you pay more as an employer? And so this leads me to my next point, which is the future of our degrees. What does our degree, what does our education mean? What does that future look like? So when we were growing up, our parents reminded us about the importance of going to school. In their generation, a degree was so rare that if you had one, it opened the doors to many of the highest paying jobs. So let me ask you another question. Comment yes or no if you think our degree, so having a degree, impacts our hourly wage when working for an online platform. So comment yes or no. Yes or no in the comments. Yes, no. Interesting question. Yeah. I was shocked when the International Labor Organization reported that people who had a bachelor's degree did not have significantly higher income than those without one in both the developing and the developed countries. It didn't matter. They explained, so the International Labor Organization explained that digital platforms are redefining the relationship between education and access to work, right? Because you don't need an education to have access to these platforms. You don't need to have a degree. That's not a requirement. You don't need to show your degree in most online platforms. So instead, your ratings and your reputation are most important for accessing the well-paid tasks. So that's a huge shift from the world that, say, our parents lived in. Now, what happens when we have the same bachelor's degree that everyone else has? What happens? You know, we used to say knowledge is power. But in reality, the world's information is right at our fingertips. So knowledge has lost its power. And these days, it's your skills that pay the bills. You see, degrees don't tell us how well a person will perform a specific task. Instead, comments and ratings from your portfolio are a far better predictor of how well you'll be able to do that same task in the future. You know, companies and universities have also noticed this trend. Many companies don't even require a degree. They're hiring people without degrees, but they know that they have the skills. And now many universities also offer micro-credentials. So not a degree, but it's like a smaller credential that you can put onto platforms such as LinkedIn or Upwork or Fiverr in order to allow clients and peers to highlight and recommend specific skills. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. I know a lot of today so far has been doom and gloom. Many freelance workers with a master's or a doctorate degree, they earned 70% more than those without a university degree in developed countries. So it is making a difference at the high end. So if you have a PhD or if you have a master's, that seems to be making still a difference in terms of how much you get paid. We are in the age of education inflation, says Bryan Caplan, the author of the book, The Case Against Education. For our parents, a bachelor's degree was that ticket. It was the ticket to high-paying jobs. And today, it's a master's. So what's next for our kids? PhD? Bryan argued that the primary function of education was not to enhance a student's skill, but to certify their intelligence, their perseverance, and their conformity. He argued that 80% of an individual's return on their education was the result of something he called signaling to potential employers. So you had the degree, or you had the advanced degree, it signals to an employer that you are the ideal candidate. You should be above the rest. You're going to be more intelligent. You're going to have greater perseverance, and you're going to be better at following instructions, so more conformity. But what happens when data and AI, this is AI parenting after all, is used to rather than human, like our human instinct for, let's say, the typical HR process? So in this case, well, worker performance actually can be regularly assessed. It's fairly easy to do that. And in fact, many platforms already do. So the International Labor Organization found that most online platforms use ratings to determine who gets access to future work. So they use your ratings. And so how many of these platforms? Well, if you're talking about freelance platforms or freelance online work platforms, that's 82%. So way up there. 72% for taxi services, and I think 67% for delivery services. We are in this era right now of regular monitoring, especially for the freelance platforms. 47% reported that they have to report the number of hours worked. 47%. 46% said they had to take screenshots of their work. So whatever you're doing, you have to take screenshots of it to prove that the work's done. And 43% attended performance meetings on a regular basis. So these are not like once or twice a year. These are like, oh no, you want to get paid? Like, we got to have a meeting. So and speaking of getting paid, getting paid as a freelancer, it basically means working until all of the needs of the client are satisfied. And the difficult reality is that 86% of workers in micro task platforms, such as Fiverr, had their initial work, like the first version of their work, rejected. And when it comes to disputes for this work, most companies often defer to the mantra that the customer is always right. So that leads to talking a little bit about the terms of service for these companies. So the terms of service for most online work platforms are mostly take it or leave it contracts that are decided by the online platform. That is, like, as a worker, you don't really have any say in terms of what that contract says. They are specifically designed to avoid the possibility of the worker becoming an employee. And this prevents workers from receiving statutory entitlements, which basically means that they get access to minimum wage and Social Security or pension. Currently, there is a push internationally and in the European Union to classify online work as something known as decent work, so that if it gets classified as this decent work category in the law, then all of the statutory protections that apply would apply to all workers. So it doesn't matter if you're an online worker or if you are if you're any type of worker, you like online worker or just a regular employee, you would still get those same statutory protections. And there's other things that I didn't mention, like there's safety and health protections that are provided. It depends on the jurisdiction, depends on the region. So, good news, right? Well, I can talk a lot about this particular subject, but I want to actually start moving on, because I think that what's really important here is we said today's going to be about AI-proof skills. So why don't we talk about that? So in this last section, I'm going to talk about the 3 R's of AI-proof skills. How can we thrive in a world of AI-mediated work? While schools focus on the fundamentals of the 3 R's that they call reading, writing, and arithmetic, we've learned that many of these skills are not unique, and they can be easily outsourced, especially now more than ever. So what would happen? What would happen if we focused on the future 3 R's of relate, recur, and create? So the first one is relate. So relationships are the basis for connecting with others about our beliefs, our values, our struggles, our pains, and our fears. We purchase products that help us achieve our goals, and they help reduce the regular pains that we experience. Relationships are the foundation of many of our big purchase decisions. Think about maybe your first car or your house purchase. I often remember like details about the people that I worked with, or the people who helped me with the sale. How did they answer my questions? How did they think about things from my perspective? Like I knew nothing at the time about buying a house, and so how did they inform me? How did they teach me about this? Or I knew nothing about cars at the time, and so they kind of told us, well, there's a lot of things you can focus on, but I think for your needs, these kind of things is what I would focus on. Oh, okay, that's helpful. We're doing the same things when we purchase online services. So if you work for Upwork or you work for Fiverr, it's actually the same thing. In the sales domain, which I work in, we say no pain, no sale. No pain, no sale. So our job is to read between the lines and relate to the pains that the client is experiencing. Perhaps in the future, or maybe even right now in the present, listening with intent, and speaking with the right confidence, the right pace, the right tonality will have more impact to our income than many of the skills that we learn for, say, writing and reading. Even sales trainers these days, they teach techniques that are specifically focused around like active, inquisitive listening with intent. They allow students to role play with each other using platforms such as Discord, which is mainly just a chat platform. You can speak to others, you can try to sell them on something, right? Like, why not? Why not have that as your first like selling experience rather than you on the phone with a potential client? Like you want to get some experience in this. And many of them will go out, like they don't just learn this theoretically, like they go out and they sell something, they go and buy something, they make money right away, and that gives you so much more practical experience. So it's a powerful way to learn, and I imagine that in many cases online, this is exactly what we need to be doing, because that's kind of the next level of learning, is like, no, not just learn and then maybe use it in the future. No, learn and use it now, because then you're going to be able to remember it. Jim Quick talks about the importance of this application, like using it right away. His recommendation is mostly teach it to somebody. So if you can learn something and you can teach it to another person, you're going to have way better retention. I think teaching it and using the skill is very similar. So if you're able to use it and then earn money from that skill, that's another way that you can build up that skill. Now, so why this skill? Why not like other skills? Why is relate so important? Well, even in a world of AI, we still deeply crave connection. It's another reason why live events like this one are more compelling than a recorded video. Like you can just go and watch the video anytime, but if you participate in the recorded event, you're writing comments down, you're going to get a lot more out of it. You're going to remember a lot more. It's going to be interactive. And that's why I try to provide as many opportunities as possible to interact, because this is how we learn. This is how we learn quicker. This is how we learn more effectively. Now the second point is recur. And it seems kind of weird. Okay, so I'm going to bring up that slide again. So the second one is recur. So one of our biggest challenges in the gig economy is that the amount of work varies a lot from month to month. So during the lockdown, many freelancers saw this huge drop in the amount of work that they were asked to do. This kind of roller coaster income makes it really challenging to manage like household cash flow. So many had to take out loans in order to make ends meet, especially for those leaner months. So the goal of being on an online platform should be to develop the skills that you know others will pay for, to a level where you can start having regular clients that you can charge a monthly retainer for. So the goal is not to be on Upwork or to be on Fiverr forever. Like, you do it for a short period of time, because at the end of the day, the most limited resource is your time. You can only serve so many clients at the same time. So you need to focus your efforts on the ones that are the highest paying. And you need to fire the clients that don't fit well with what you're doing. This is hard to say, especially if you don't have any clients right now. You're like, man, I would take any opportunity, and you should at the beginning, right? Like, you should take any opportunity you can, and if that opportunity is like a Fiverr position, why not? Like, it builds your skill, you make money doing it. There's no, like, this isn't a lot of harm, but it's the mentality of, I'm here doing Fiverr and I'm just gonna keep on doing that indefinitely. That's what I'm talking about here. So in order to charge a higher amount or a higher premium, you first have to have skills that aren't readily available on the online work platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. Your relation skills that I talked about earlier, that number one skill, is definitely going to help you dive deep into the pains of clients. And so you have a good sense of what people are willing to pay for. Because if you don't have a good sense of what the clients are looking for, you're always going to be at a disadvantage, because people will always say, oh, like, I don't need that. Like, that's not worth it. It's like, because you never really dove well enough into what the specific pain was. Just thought, oh, you just need to make more money, right? So, well, there's a million ways to make money. Why yours? Why compared to all the other ones? Like, it's not clear. You haven't really made the value of what you do clear, and that's a problem. So, what is it? What is that one unique thing that you do that nobody else does? Maybe it's helping moms who have kids that are picky eaters. Maybe it's helping a business generate more leads through digital marketing tools like advertising on Facebook. The key thing here is make sure that you measure the results so that you can develop this list of social proofs. Like, your goal with these jobs isn't just to get paid, it's to develop a list of social proofs so that you can show what results that you have produced for your clients. And then when you've increased your rate enough, then it starts to make sense for clients to pay you a monthly retainer to save money while still getting the quality work that they require. So, example would be, okay, I started charging maybe $50, and then I started charging $100, and then $400, $500, and $1,000 per project. And I have this company where I'm doing like $1,000 project with them every month. So I said, okay, what we're gonna do is sign a monthly retainer, and I will charge you $800 per month, but you'll sign like for an entire year. And so 12 months is our length of our contract. And maybe like you need to give me 3 months minimum notice or something if you're going to cancel, or maybe 6 months. I don't know. Like, you can decide what the terms are, or maybe you can just say like there's no refunds. Basically, that's how it's gonna be. But you'll get a 20% discount, and so it'll be worth it because you can get the same quality work. You get it at a much discounted price. So that's good. That's good for them. Now, we're in this world of work available, like labor is available as a service. So make sure that you're constantly looking for skills that are in demand, and leverage, of course, like, don't just go and find the thing that's in demand and just learn that. Like, make sure it leverages what you are already good at, so it complements your skills. Otherwise, you get into this situation of it's kind of like you've heard the phrase jack of all trades, master of none. Like, that's basically what would happen, is you wouldn't actually be good at any of these skills, and your ability in all those skills would decrease because you're just too all over the place. Like, what is that particular problem for the client? How can you be good at all the different aspects of that problem for the client? That's a good way of addressing the problem. Rather than, oh, well, I'm going to help this client and then this client and then another client. That's kind of all over the place. We sometimes describe it as like a shiny object syndrome. So you kind of like all over. You're here, you're there. Like, we don't want that. That's not really going to help your wages because you're going to have to deal with different clients, and each one you're going to be starting from scratch. So make sure that it's about building that relationship, understanding the pain deeper. Like, what are your interests? What do you love doing? Go in that area. What are people in that domain? What's their biggest pain point? You probably know it better than most people. That's how you are able to help them better than anyone else. And so the last one, go back to that slide, is create. So this is cheating. It doesn't start with an R, but like reading, writing doesn't start with an R too. So I get to cheat on one because teachers are cheating on one as well. There is an R in create, so I'm good to go, right? So you can get quite far with just the first two that I've described. So you have great relations, so you're able to relate with others, and the second is you're able to get recurring revenue. Awesome. So why even bother adding on creativity? What's the point? Well, as I mentioned before, creativity needs an audience. And again, like, how do you get an audience? This is the relate skill that I had talked about earlier. Your audience could just be your family. It could be your community, or even your society. Now, deep creativity challenges the status quo. And what it does, especially in this time, is it puts you at the top of the food chain in the fourth industrial revolution. You want to be Uber and not the person whose work is mitigated by Uber. You want to be Fiverr and not the person whose work is mitigated by Fiverr. Is this making sense? Yes? Great. This is a totally different skill set from maybe what you've, maybe what we were taught, or we may get taught in school. In the book, The Education of Millionaires by Michael Ellsberg, he showed how some of the most successful school dropouts were world class in certain things that they didn't teach in school. Those include relating. He describes it as not relating, but he used the words networking, and then he also used the word sales. So networking and sales, they were just world class networkers. They just knew how to walk into a room and just like collect all of the pertinent information from everyone. And they were really good at connecting the right pieces together in order to make things happen. This is like the collaboration skill that we talk about in school, but it's like done in a very practical way. And then the other one is kind of being disruptive. And so that has to do with like creative thinking or problem solving or critical thinking. They just saw things potentially differently than others. And that gave them the advantage because they could see something that other people couldn't see about what was going to happen. And that gave them a unique advantage. So those are some of the characteristics of the millionaires that he saw that dropped out of school. Now, in order to do this, like practically, you shouldn't be thinking about doing this all on your own. Like creativity, like I mentioned, in isolation, like you need that audience, you need that community behind you. And so you need a team. You need a team that is world class in addressing the pain points of your particular niche. So you have to be able to address that pain point better, more thoroughly, quicker, than everything else that is out there. You then also need a team that is great at relating with potential clients and investors. You need people who are going to help you generate leads, generate sales. And that often involves a human contact. It could be a phone call. It could be a Zoom meeting. It could be a discussion that you have live with that person. And that's where things like we talk about tonality, we talk about the just the expression that people have, how they say things, like what questions they ask. All of these things are very, very important. They really impact the entire sales process. And so being really good at that type of skill of listening with intent and then responding by asking the right types of questions that helps them become not this like pushy salesperson, but more like a trusted advisor, is what you're really aiming for. And we don't quite have enough time for me to explain the entire skill, but I think that this is, suffice to say, like one of the skills that is mentioned in the Millionaire Education, that it's really important. And I think it doesn't matter what you're doing. Oh, Dr. Tran is joining us today. Hey, thank you for joining us today, Dr. Tran. I appreciate it. I never know who's gonna be joining us, so that's great. So now you also need a team that is also really good at figuring out what work you should focus on and what work you should outsource to others. Now, this is a tricky one because as a solopreneur, right? Like the tendency is just I do everything. And I will speak from my own experience. Yes, glad to have you as well. 2-year-old daughter. I'm learning the parenting skill. You're a great channel for parenting. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Tran. Really appreciate you joining us. So as somebody who acts as a solopreneur, there are a lot of things that I could do. I mean, like with my computer science background, like going out and programming stuff is what I love to do. I love to like tinker and write code, but I actually have to force myself to say, no, those are things that can be done by other people. And while they may help my business, I need to focus on like what is the value specifically for my clients, specifically for the people that I work with, that is going to make the most difference like for them. What pain point am I going to be able to address for them that I'm really going to be able to solve better than anyone else out there? And it's got to leverage the things that I'm really, really good at. So it's got to leverage the existing skills. So if my background is in computer science, I don't go and say like, I wouldn't dare like kind of say I'm the biology expert or something like that. That wouldn't help you at all, because I wouldn't be further ahead than say Dr. Tran. But in this case, the key here is that yes, like I use these services as well, and I look at, well, what needs to be done. Let's do some experiments. Let's see which ones produce the best result. And it's about that knowing what you should focus on, right? Because we all have the same number of hours per day. You have the same numbers as the millionaire or the billionaire. Everybody has the same. What they really focus, I think it's really the focus that makes the most difference. Now, I don't have enough. We're learning and leveraging from one another's skill. Yes, we are. Maybe I'll highlight that briefly. Dr. Tran's been giving some really good responses here. I have little to no technical skills, so we're all learning from each other. I think that's the most important thing, is like this is how we do something bigger than ourselves. And when I talk about creativity, it is never just one thing. It's always a group of skills. You need a group of skills in order to get things done. It doesn't make sense for you to do every task. And that's why micro tasks exist. That is why we have platforms like Upwork. This is why we have other platforms like Fiverr that allow you to do the things that you are really passionate about and you're really good at, and spend less of that time in the menial tasks that you don't enjoy, and that maybe potentially somebody else loves doing, right? Like I'm not a huge fan of doing accounting myself. I'm really terrible with that stuff. But you get an accountant and oh man, they love this stuff. They're all over it. Fantastic. Let's get them to do what they're really passionate about. So that's it. Like I don't have enough time to fully cover like all of the different aspects of creativity in our discussion today. But if you want to learn more about this topic, and if you want to see, like, because I have some specific references. Oh, I wanted to bring them up, and I didn't know it was still downloading. Maybe I'll give you a brief preview of what I wanted to show you today. These infographics from this report are fantastic. I think everyone should be seeing these infographics, and you should definitely, if you don't have a copy of it, just pop a comment or something pop a comment, and then I'll send them over to you, because these are really good. I'll put them all in my blog post, and then in the blog post you'll see them. So let me show you what I mean. So this was the stats that I was talking about earlier. 5 times rise. So this exponential growth, 2000 to 2010, to 2020, this rise in like basically online platform work. And you can see like a large portion of it is still the delivery type and the taxi type. And the online web-based is growing. It's growing a lot. And it grew like 5 times from 2010 alone. So you can just see this like exponential growth. The other one that I find it interesting is like the workers, like very few of them have employees. So people per hour, like I said, 50 employees, but 2.4 million that they manage the work for. HackerRank, 200 employees, they manage the work of 11 million workers. That's crazy. So yes, Dr. Tran, I'll definitely send you the doc as well. Yeah, so I love this. It's fairly easy to understand. It talks about the amount of money that is invested into these platforms, how much revenue they generate. There is some solid stuff. This is the International Labor Organization. So I highly recommend, like, there is some really great further reading that can really give you some deep insights into this stuff. And I'll have it all published today. So just let me know in the chat if you want a copy of the doc. And yeah, Dr. Tran, I've got you. So I think what I'll leave you with is this one tip. And I talk about this in other courses that I teach. It's, you know, those ads that you see, like it could be on YouTube or other social media platforms. You scroll through them and you're like, oh man, these are so annoying. And you like skip them all the time. I know that many schools, for example, are installing ad blockers specifically to prevent these ads from showing. Makes sense. Like I don't want to show like my kids or children these. What I'd actually recommend is try watching them all the way through, and actually read some of the copy in them. Find out why. Like why would someone or a company pay a lot of money in order to show you this advertisement? Because this is your attention, this is your space. And somebody is paying a large amount of money in order to show you this advertisement. And in fact, it may be the most profitable thing that you watch, like even more profitable than the actual YouTube video or the other posts that you see. Like, because these ones are the ones that are truly making money. Like they wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't already making serious like return on their ad spend. And if it was, then you got to learn why, right? It must be working. So what about it is working? How could you apply this exact same technique to your own work? Now, your work could be totally different. Maybe I'm in a totally different field. It doesn't matter, because like I said, selling is really that first point. It's about relating with others. And when you relate with others, it doesn't matter if you are in like a sales position, if you're in education and you're trying to sell an idea to your students. It doesn't matter if you are in, the medical field and you're trying to sell a new instrument. Like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. You are still always in that mode of selling. So what are you learning? And I think that applying this technique to your own work will help you learn the art of writing just really great copy, stuff that compels others to action. Selling is relating, Dr. Ed. Oh, I love this. So let's see if I can bring this back up. Yes. Yeah. So he says, selling is relating. I see massive ads. Yeah. Right. Yes. So I see massive ads on YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, they get two ads nowadays. And selling is definitely relating. And so I'm glad. So I teach my own kids. So I want to be clear. I am not trying to teach you anything that is like a theoretical idea. Maybe it works. I don't know. Like, no, I wouldn't do that to you. to me, like, I only want to share with you things that I have tried myself and I've seen huge success from. It's incredible, right? Like it changes everything once you can start seeing this. My wife showed me this ad, and it was just for helping parents with picky eaters. And I looked at the copy and I was like, wow, this stuff is brilliant. And I was starting to write it down. I'm like, what are you using? What are the programs? I was like, going into the code. I was so curious. And with my own kids, like, we'll be watching an ad and they're like, oh, let's just skip the ad. And I'm like, no, let's look at it. Why is this compelling? What are they telling you to do? Why? Like, we watch a lot of Simply Piano ads, like, because you watch enough kid stuff. They go, oh, yeah, you should have this Simply Piano app. Why is that so compelling? What are they saying? Oh, they're saying, like, with hard work. And so they're connecting to that value of, like, parents say that if you work really hard, then you will achieve your goal. And so look at these people. They did it for several months, and look at what they've been able to achieve. It's so amazing. And so that's what they're trying to instill in you as well, is this value. So I think that these types of examples are very powerful. And nowadays, it's interesting because my kids are at the point where they actually want to go and make these themselves. So they will go and say, okay, I know that this guy, he does like just Lego, and he does a really great job of selling Lego. And so I will go and make one of those ads myself. I thought, brilliant. And he'll say things like, okay, so this was really cool. I explained you all these features. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more, go and subscribe to my channel. Give me a like. He knows that like these kind of engagement things are really going to make a difference. And these are not bad things for kids to know. And the reason for that is it does several things at the same time. One thing that it does is it helps you understand and it helps you think critically about all of the different types of advertisements and media that are presented to you. And this is going to impact how you think about the world. You'll see the world much more like the way it really is, rather than, oh, there's just all these annoying things. Like, you think you're ignoring them, but your subconscious mind is not. It sees that image. Even if it's just for a second, like a millisecond, that still has an impact. Like, that image is still burned into your mind. They say, like, an image is worth 1,000 words. It's like we dream about these things and we start like expanding on it. And then maybe next time we start really diving into this. What was this ad? And then afterwards we're like, okay, I'm buying this stuff now. They got you. They got you. So understand this world of social media. As a parent, I think that this is a useful skill, not only for marketers, but also for parents. Understand social media. Understand how these kinds of ads impact how you think about the world and ultimately what you buy. Because once you understand these things, then you can control them. And when you can control them, then we are moving from screen time to quality time. So once again, congratulations for investing in your family today. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate everyone who watches these, because I think that this message needs to get out more. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, where we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this topic. Like, I want to go a little bit deeper into creativity. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface. I want to talk a little bit about creativity and school. And I want to present some tips and some advice and some ideas of how we can move closer to connecting with our students' interests, relating, turning that into creation, but still like actually doing the schoolwork. Like, I think this is there's a gap here. It's like, do what the kids are interested in, but what about the school? Like, they still have to pass those tests. And I think that we need to know, we as parents need to start thinking about this. Because ultimately that connection often lies on us. It can be very difficult for a teacher to, like many teachers that I speak with say, like, I manage the work of 40 students. It's very difficult for me to know what all 40 of them are interested in. And I think I have some strategies that can help with creativity at scale. And I also have some strategies that can help creativity at home. So thank you very much. Appreciate you. Dr. Tran says, thank you for your great advice. Dr. Ed, I'll reach out to you for more. So thank you for that. And yeah, we are here for you. And if you have any questions, and if you have anything that you think that we can help out with, drop me a private message, like reach out to me. I want to be here for you. I want to see how I can best support you. That's really the goal is for me is to think about, well, my background is mostly in computers and computer science. And, I'm starting to learn a little bit more about the marketing side and how all of that still connects to computers. I want to see how that is going to help you, and that's going to help your family. And it's one of the reasons why I'm even thinking about things like, if I were to offer a course that would cover a specific topic, like I describe it as kind of a movement in a box. So like how to do all this like creativity stuff, just in a nice, neat package, so that it's fairly easy to share this with your kids. Or if like I've been thinking about some courses that I could offer, like if I were to offer a course on how to, I describe it as the internet license, like internet driver's license for your kids. So I see a lot of, and this is a topic that I'm hoping to cover soon, is a lot of, this is an important topic. So I only briefly covered it today, but I may cover this more in the future. It's this this age of post-consent, this post-consent age. And what this means is that we are kind of in an era where the terms of service are not optional, right? So like when I first started playing with like computers and the internet, like everything was just fun, right? Like you never had to even sign anything. But nowadays, like you don't agree to those terms and services, like you can't even get a job. You're like, there's going to be no Upwork for you. There's going to be no Uber for you. There's going to be there are certain job opportunities that are just not available to you if you do not agree. And so we live in this post-consent world. And what does it mean when all these decisions are being made automatically, and we can't really control it? We can't control who has our data, what we can do with our data, like privacy. We live in almost a post-privacy world. And I thought that there was some good learnings that we should pick up from. I thought that might be a good topic for a future discussion. And this is one of the reasons why I feel there's a need to address this concern, because I feel what they teach in schools is mostly, well, maybe if you adjust your like privacy settings in Facebook, like it'll do less tracking or other people won't know. It's like, that's not really how Facebook works. Like, so you need to know. You need to know the computer side of things in order to know where to go next. So with that, let me know. Anything I mentioned today that you thought was really compelling, that you'd like me to expand upon, let me know. I'm here. I'm here to expand that stuff and to give you the information that you're looking for. And with that, I want to thank you again for your time. Appreciate you. And we will see you next week. Thanks.